According to the World Health Organization, along with the United Nations, about 1.2 million people die each year from unsafe water, making it one of the leading causes of death in the world. One of the numerous water bodies in need of attention lies on the east coast of the United States.
We will begin the long, necessary effort to clean up a productive recreational area and a special national resource, the Chesapeake Bay.
The Chesapeake Bay is the largest estuary in the United States, home to more than 17 million people and 3,000 species of plants and animals. It also has the greatest land-to-water ratio of any water body in the world, meaning that everyone within this watershed is only a few minutes away from one of its rivers. Flourishing with diversity and wildlife, it is rightfully called a national treasure. However, its conditions over the years have worsened due to human activity.
It's hard to really say the state of the bay in a given point because you have to look at it over a longer period of time. But obviously, the majority of our issues are anthropogenic, 100% human-related.
Increased use of pesticides by agriculture industries and the development of cities are a few of the many examples. Because of these shifts, several organizations, such as the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the Chesapeake Bay Program, have been working towards saving the bay from destruction. Advocacy has been a key strategy in protecting the bay. An example of advocacy that has been put into action within the past decade is the Chesapeake Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act is a piece of legislation that outlines enforceable limits to the amount of pollution that can be put into the waters. From that, the Clean Water Blueprint was created, which clearly lists the steps needed to be taken in order to reach that goal. With a set timeline and real power, it paves a path for further action. And this may be our last chance for successful restoration. Great water quality corresponds with greater public health and increased economic prosperity. As a naturally scenic location, the bay has been essential for tourism and recreational activities. Nonetheless, historically, the Chesapeake Bay's conditions have been subpar ever since the population grew in the area after John Smith first arrived in the 1600s. A combination of habitat destruction, overfishing, and contamination of its waters make up the main cause of its decline. In State of the Bay reports by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the conditions of the watershed have been documented thoroughly since 1998. The state of the bay is measured on a grading scale from 0 to 100, and each number corresponds to a letter grade. A score of 100 would mean that the bay has returned to the state that John Smith reported back in the 1600s, but with human development, this is considered to be an unviable path. So, the goal is to achieve a score of 70, which would mean that the bay has been successfully saved and can flourish on its own. 3 categories are measured: habitat, pollution, and fisheries. Between all of these categories, there are 13 measured indicators such as wetlands, forested buffers, chemicals, blue crabs, and oysters. Excess of substances like nitrogen and phosphorus have been causing the growth of algae blooms that lead to dead zones in the bay. For an area known for its biodiversity, this is a serious threat. One of these indicators is oysters. They are natural filters that maintain clear water that can sustain marine life, and they provide homes for various critters in the watershed. Besides these crucial functions, oysters are also widely enjoyed as food for both bay wildlife and humans. They are harvested by fisheries for consumption, but because of extreme overfishing in the past 3 centuries, the population is now less than 1% of what it once was. This drastic decrease has impacted the rate of regrowth as well as their filtering capacity.
Oysters, they can't go anywhere. So if you have that bad water move through there and stay around through a few tides or, 48 hours, that would probably have an effect on them as well.
On May 11th, 2010, a significant advancement occurred. In a lawsuit filed against EPA, several plaintiffs, including the CBF, won against the government agency. This resulted in the EPA being required to enforce the TMDL, which meant that the EPA had real authority in setting deadlines and issuing consequences if they were not honored.
So the goal is to say, hey, here's a snapshot of history, and here's where we are now. How can we get back to that point? And that's the whole purpose of that recovery program.
If implemented successfully by all parties, the Clean Water Blueprint would help get the Chesapeake Bay to a score of 40 by 2025. The state of the bay has been steadily improving because of efforts by various environmental groups and advocates. The inclusion of the Clean Water Act has increased the grade of the Chesapeake Bay from 31 to 33 in the time that it has been implemented. The goal of the blueprint is to have clear and healthy waters in the Chesapeake Bay. With more dissolved oxygen in the waters, it would aid the production of shellfish, blue crabs, and other marine species that have been hindered before. The improved state of the water would provide less extreme weather events like flooding or drought, so there would be less risk of property damage, injuries, or worse. In addition to the real estate significance, the estuary is known for its beauty and tourism, both of which would be hurt by overly polluted waters. With the success of the Clean Water Blueprint, recreational activities would be able to thrive, and more people would have the chance to experience the wonder of the Chesapeake Bay. Throughout the years, there have been constant efforts for oyster restoration, the growth of environmental education, and pushes in climate-friendly policies. Making changes like this requires more than one person, but one person can make all the difference. By spreading the word and teaching others about the environment, we can do many things. Everyone has an effect on the bay. Every small deed is one step closer to the goal of a saved environment. Legislation has the power to reverse harmful actions, prevent future crises, and protect our environment, all in an effective manner.
Some of the most intriguing, positive reinforcement that I've seen related to environmental conservation and protection stems from high school kids. And their voices, when they are heard, are so much more powerful than an old man like me. So with regard to being proactive, a really good example is they're doing the NEMO 7B construction plan right now. They're trying to essentially get a form of legislation across that's gonna create a roadway that cuts through a national wildlife refuge and connects Sandbridge Road directly to Nemo Parkway. Well, if you know anything about that, you know that that straight shot of land is unaffected, preserved, protected land. Well, there's a hearing coming up on June 8th, and guess who they want to be there? High school kids. So for me, when it comes to being proactive and it comes to making positive change, it starts with youth. And believe it or not, the more interested that the youth are in these concepts, their parents become more interested, and then their friends, and it becomes kind of like this trendy, how can I give back? How can I do more?
Writing letters to politicians, signing petitions, and working towards particular policies are just 3 of the many ways your voice can make a significant impact in this world. With less algae blooms, swimmable and safe waters would be able to thrive. Restoration cannot be done alone. It requires support, vigilance, and cooperation from everyone. Advocacy is a continuous process and one that cannot be stopped. Use your voice. Save a national treasure. Save the Chesapeake Bay.